Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Open Science Trends, Opportunities for Research, Development, and Innovation, brought to you in partnership with Taylor Francis and F1000Research. My name is Jason Markakis, and I'm the Director of Author Research Marketing here at Taylor & Francis, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy day to join us. Today, we hope to provide you with some unique insight on a few different topics here. Global trends in open science, with a little bit of a focus on North America, but looking at it from a global trend portion. Keeping your research office competitive, groundbreaking open publishing solutions. We are very thankful that Dr. Kimberly Eck, who you all know as the NORDP President, will be moderating our session today. But before handing it over to her, I would like to introduce you to our presenters and also do a few areas of topics when it comes to questions and chat and things like that. First, our first presenter is Victoria Babbitt, who is the Director of Research Development and Outreach here at Taylor & Francis. Victoria joined TNF in 2008 and throughout the past decade has supported societies, editors, and authors as they navigate the rapidly changing publishing landscape. Her work involves engaging with global researcher communities to build knowledge and capacity related to publishing and editorial activities. Our second and final presenter today will be Liz Allen, who is Director of Strategic Initiatives at F1000Research and leads on shaping new initiatives and partnerships to foster our open research publishing. Prior to joining F1000Research in 2015, she spent over a decade leading the evaluation team at Wellcome, and before that, a few years cultivating an interest in all things health and medical data at the UK Office for National Statistics, ONS. Liz is a Crossref board member, co-founder of Credit, which contributor roles taxonomy, and serves on the advisory board for the Software Sustainability Institute. So those are our presenters, guys. Again, very excited for everyone to present. But before handing it over to Dr. Eck to say a few words before we get into the session, just want to do a few housekeeping items here. If you have any questions during the session, feel free to drop them in the chat box on the lower right-hand corner of the GoToWebinar. We will be monitoring this. If we have time during the sessions, we could cover them, but we also have a Q&A portion at the end, so we can ask those at the end as well. We also have the option at the end during the Q&A, which I hopefully will have enough time, where you can raise your hand, we'll be able to open up your microphone, and you can ask the panelists or Dr. Eck at that portion as well. Finally, we are recording today's session. We are talking to NORDP about putting that session for those that are not able to join on the NORDP website. So I want to let everyone know that this is being recorded as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Eck. Again, Dr. Eck, thank you for moderating today. And yeah, over to you.
Hey, thank you so much. So, hi NORDP members. I wish I could see you right now, but I see you filing into the webinar. We have over 70 members joining us today, and I'm so glad that we've drawn interest in learning about this. Open science and open research, I think, has gotten a lot more headline in the past year. I remember it was about April 2020 when the Nature headline was all about how open science and open research were facilitating the development of the COVID-19 vaccines, and we have seen that play out. And so, open research, though, is meaningful and is shaping research in so many different ways. And so, I think I'm so glad that Taylor & Francis, they reached out to us and they said, hey, do you guys want to know about this? And I'm so glad they're going to share a little bit about what open research is, what F1000 is with our members, because it's something that as we all work to increase recognition and increase resources at our institutions, it's one of those other pieces that is shaping the research ecosystem nationally. And so I'm really glad that we can help our members learn a little bit more about this, sometimes just for awareness, and then other times you may actually really be partnering to enable that for your faculty. So I'm so glad that you could join us here today. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Victoria.
Great, thanks a lot. And during the presentation, I think I'm going to turn off my camera just because my internet's been a little bit wonky this week and I'm worried that the connection is going to drop out. So I'll turn it back on for the discussion at the end. Great, wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for, sorry, I've got the video right in front of my face here. There we go. Thanks everyone for taking the time to join us today. As said, my name is Victoria Babbitt and I'm based in Stockholm, Sweden, although I originally hail from the Pacific Northwest and am a University of Washington alumni. So today I will be providing an overview on open research, also referred to as open science and sometimes open scholarship. I'll be using both open science and open research terms today. And throughout this discussion, I will highlight some of the activity we see in the US and how we, as a publisher, are providing options to authors who would like to incorporate open research practices into their research communication strategies. I'll then hand over to Liz Allen, who will provide an overview on F1000Research. So before I get started, just a little quick introduction to Taylor and Francis for those of you who are unfamiliar with us. Taylor and Francis partners with authors and scholarly societies and editors to publish in all areas of the humanities, social sciences, behavioral sciences, science and technology, and medicine sectors. We are the world's leading publishers of scholarly journals, books, ebooks, textbooks, and reference works. We publish more than 2,700 journals and over 5,000 new books each year, with a books backlist in excess of 120,000 specialist titles. For those of you from the humanities and social sciences, you'll be familiar with our Routledge imprint, but we also publish science, technology, and medicine journals under the Taylor and Francis and Dove imprints. And this past year, we were delighted to welcome F1000Research to the company. So, open science. Open science is a, for lack of a better word, movement encouraging the opening up of the research process. While open research practices have been prevalent in different disciplines for some time, part of the push for open research can be seen as a response to the reproducibility crisis. Much of the open debate of the past 15 to 20 years has focused on open access, which is about the accessibility to the final version of research articles. However, open research is much broader. It includes open access, but also looks at how opening up all elements of the research process can make it more transparent and increase the usability and reproducibility of the research. In the end, creating greater trust in the methods and findings and science in general. These activities can also reduce waste in the research ecosystem. Moreover, this openness can spur collaboration and innovation in tackling some of the big issues of our time. As Kimberly mentioned, we've seen this past year in regards to the response to COVID. The sharing of data early on allowed scientists in the pharma industry to get a jump start on vaccines. The increase of preprints and opening up of articles across subject areas allowed researchers to identify successful treatments for patients, as well as grapple with and understand the challenges facing communities in terms of education, mental health, hospitality and tourism, and the economy, and the list goes on. Lastly, open research creates the possibility for placing greater value and giving credit to all aspects of the research process, not just the final publication. And here are the four main pillars of open science. I'll discuss each of these in a moment. However, I just wanted to point out this doesn't capture all of the practices that fall under the umbrella of open research, such as open collaboration, open notebooks, open educational resourcing, preprints, pre-registration of research, and open citations. And while open research is often perceived as a relatively new phenomenon, many of these practices have been around for a while in different geographies and disciplines. For instance, arXiv, which is a repository initially for physics research, was launched in 1993 at Cornell University and now serves as a model for preprint servers through various subject areas. The practice of sharing data is not necessarily new within many disciplines, and the definition of open access was formalized in 2000. However, as a concept, it's been around since the 1970s, with the first open access journals appearing in the late 80s and early 90s. What we are seeing now is the growing support for opening up the research process by researchers, funders, and institutions, the ongoing creation of infrastructures to enable sharing and collaboration, and the establishment of standards of best practice. So the first pillar of open access is open data. When we talk about data being open, we mean that they should be accessible to the public. The objective is increasing the transparency and the reproducibility of research. In this context, data isn't solely considered a collection of numbers on a spreadsheet. It can also be maps, photos, survey responses, music, basically anything that is integral to the research analysis and findings. At the most basic, data should be placed in a public repository, but best practice is to follow the FAIR principles. This means that data should be findable. It should be assigned a globally unique persistent identifier, such as a DOI. It should be accessible. Everyone should have free access to the data via a well-defined protocol. It should be interoperable. That is, the data should be structured in line with common practice and principles using standard vocabularies and classifications. And lastly, it should be reusable with clear and accessible data usage licensing. Along with the reasons why open data is beneficial to research and trust in science that I've already mentioned, an EU cost-benefit analysis found that the cost of not having FAIR data was 10.2 billion euro a year. With FAIR data, we can expect to increase the speed of discoveries and to tackle more complex problems. Some research has shown that there's a 25% increase in citations if open data is linked to the article. Now, some have voiced concern about open data, but the general rule of thumb is data should be as open as possible and as closed as necessary. In terms of infrastructure, there are a growing number of repositories, often subject-specific, but there are generalist ones as well. So you may have heard of Dryad or Figshare. And I'll share a link at the end for a database for repositories that you can search. Now, unlike articles, it can be challenging to provide a clear picture of open data activity in the US, but funder policies are usually a good indicator of which way the wind is blowing. So here I've listed the data policies for the NSF, NIH, EPA, and NASA. And I imagine that there are policies being considered and possibly implemented at the institutional level as well. And if that is the case at your institution, I'd be interested to hear about that. At Taylor Francis, we introduced our data policy in 2018. Our goal is to give authors a choice in terms of sharing data. The policy that we have created, which is journal specific, offers different levels of openness, starting with encouraging authors to share their data and then increasing requirements until our final policy choice, which requires FAIR data. The editors and the owning societies of the journals can select the policy that they feel is right for their particular community. The second pillar is about open code. And open code materials refers to the source code or software and any documentation that's used in a research project. The benefit for the research community are similar to those with open data. So transparency, reliability through many people running the same code, and the evolution of ideas and code through networking. The aim is to address some of the issues that we see, particularly around trust, and to push the science further. A recent step that we've taken towards supporting open research is our partnership with CodeOcean. CodeOcean is a cloud-based computational reproducibility platform that allows researchers to share, discover, and run code. The author's code is published on CodeOcean, given a DOI, and then embedded on the Taylor Francis article page. The code can then be run in real time. It can be edited and applied to different research problems. So I just included a little screenshot there of what it looks like. Now, the third pillar is open access. And as I noted earlier, open access is an element of open research that most people are fairly familiar with because it's been the focus oftentimes of the discussions around open research. I just thought I'd take some time to go over the basics for those of you that aren't as familiar with open access. So open access has two main elements. The first is making content freely available online, and the second is making it reusable by third parties. And I'll briefly cover both of these. But first, I thought I would just provide a simple view of the global OA policy priorities. And please keep in mind, there are definitely nuances that this map does not capture. But without going into too much detail, we can see that Western and northern parts of Europe and the UK are focusing on gold open access, though there are some developments at the funding level that may complicate this picture in the future. Eastern Europe, India, the African continent, and Latin America have traditionally put their focus on green open access. And then we see a mixture of policies in North America, Russia, Australia, and the APAC region more generally. Recently, there have been quite a bit of discussion about green open access, especially in Europe. So I just thought I'd go over what green open access is. Green open access is when an author submits the accepted version of their paper to an archive or repository. Usually it's an institutional repository or possibly a national or regional repository. It doesn't refer to the published article, but rather to the version that was accepted by the journal, but has not yet been sent to the production team for typesetting and publication. Now, many funders and institutions require authors to submit their manuscripts to an institutional repository. However, most subscription-based journals have embargo periods, which means that if the author is published in a subscription-based journal, they need to wait until the embargo period has passed before they submit to the repository. So I've listed our embargo periods on this slide for our subscription journals. So for arts and humanities and social sciences, it's 18 months. For science, technology, and medicine, it's 12 months. Now, this is obviously not the case for open access journals. You're able to submit your accepted manuscript immediately to a repository with an open access journal. And I just thought I'd show you the ROAR map. This ROAR map is showing the growth in repository mandates and policies in the US from 2005 to 2019. There's a fair amount of variation in terms of the policies in the US. For instance, Harvard requires that the accepted version of the manuscript should be deposited to the repository no later than the publication date for all schools, whereas some institutions don't specifically list a deposit deadline. If you're interested, you can review the different approaches on their website. There are links to the policies for every institution and funder who has introduced a policy. And I have the link to the website on the last slide there. So whereas green open access involves making your work available via archives and repositories, gold open access essentially entails making the PDF or the version of record freely available online. And there are two ways in which an author can publish open access with Taylor and Francis and with most publishers. And that is either in a fully open access journal or in what we call a hybrid journal. Fully open access journals publish all of their content in an open access manner. These journals aren't funded by subscriptions. Instead, they charge an APC or an article publishing charge. However, many journals are funded by societies or by agreements with institutions. And in those cases, either the author doesn't have to pay an APC or maybe they will pay a reduced fee. Hybrid OA is when an author chooses to publish open access in a journal that is subscription funded and much of the content is not freely accessible unless the institution has a subscription. And these journals charge an APC to cover the publication costs of those particular open access articles. However, many institutions and consortia have agreements with publishers to cover those APC costs for hybrid journals. The second element of open access is how your work can be used after publication by others. If a researcher publishes their work open access, they'll be asked to choose a Creative Commons license, which describes how people can use their work in the future. So here are the licenses. CC BY. This is the most common license for fully open access journals. And this license allows authors to use their work in any way they choose, as long as they clearly attribute the authorship and original publication. Next, we have CC BY NC. And this means others can use the work in any manner, but they can't profit from it. For instance, they cannot include an article that was published open access with a CC BY-NC license. They can't include that in a book that they will turn around and charge money for. Next, we have CC BY-ND, and here the author cannot change the work in any way. They must use it in its original form. For instance, this would mean that they couldn't translate the work and then publish it. And then lastly, there's CC BY-SA. And this means that when people use the work, they need to attach the same license that the original author attached to the work. So what are the benefits of publishing in an open access journal or platform? Well, the main benefits are greater visibility, and with that, potentially greater impact both within the research community and the broader public. And the access, visibility, and impact can spur innovation and collaboration. At Taylor and Francis, we've seen that open access articles typically receive substantially more citations. So we see an increase of about 32%, and greater readership with over 6 times as many downloads. Increasingly, many countries, regions, and institutions, open access has become a requirement, or at least strongly encouraged. And usually when it's required, support is made available for the APCs via the institutions or via funding bodies. And I thought I would just provide a glimpse of OA publications. This is a global look here, and it's quite similar to what we would see in terms of regular publication output generally. Though the one thing I did notice is that in this case, India would normally be in the top 5, whereas Brazil is in the top 5 when it comes to open access publications. And this I was just capturing hybrid and gold open access. And then this is just a closer look at the US. So we see a steady growth in open access publishing, accelerating a bit in 2017, 2018. And in this chart, I've included what's called bronze open access, which is when a journal makes an article freely accessible. However, it's not truly open access in the sense we've been talking about, because it doesn't typically have a CC BY license attached to it. Interestingly, I think, at least to me, we see a decline in the bronze open access on this chart with the rise of gold open access. And we see that hybrid open access is remaining fairly steady throughout. And here's a look at open access publications at Taylor and Francis. I should say the data on the last 2 is from the Dimensions database. So here's a look at open access publications at Taylor and Francis. And not too surprising, the majority of open access articles fall within science and technology, mainly due to life and environmental sciences and medicine. However, we do have a significant amount of social science OA publications. And I think this is likely due to the fact that we're the largest social science publisher for journals. And we have a number of open access journals within the social sciences. But also, we have a number of transformative license agreements with consortia in Europe, which translates to more open access publications and journals across disciplines, irrespective of what the funding looks like. And this is likely also one of the reasons that for the regional breakdown for open access publications, Europe is the largest piece of the pie on the right-hand side. I'll just touch briefly on open peer review, as Liz will show you how it works in practice at F1000 in a moment. While there is some disagreement on how to define open peer review, in recent years, most have come to accept Tony Ross Heller's definition, which he presented in an article published on F1000Research in 2017. So open peer review can include the following. So open identities, where authors and reviewers are reciprocally identified. Open reports, where the review reports themselves are published. Open participation, where the wider community can contribute to the process. Open interaction, where review takes the form of a discussion. Open open pre-review manuscripts, where manuscripts are available prior to any formal review process. Open final version commenting, where the final published manuscript can be reviewed further. And then open platforms, where reviews are facilitated by a service external to the journal itself. One of our authors summed up the benefits of open peer review nicely, stating it's about shifting our mindset about peer review from gatekeeping to supportive mentoring, to creating the best possible research, which means seeing the peer reviewer as a collaborator. I really like that. A few last things to highlight here. I just wanted to point out the Center for Open Science has created badges to acknowledge open research practices. They have 3 badges, one for open data, one for open materials and code, and one for pre-registration. And the badges are attached to publications, and a number of our journals offer this option. So the badges indicate that the author has made their data or their code, or they pre-registered the research. So it, again, is highlighting and giving them credit for building in open research practices to their workflow. Also, some journals have incorporated registered reports into the types of content that they publish across disciplines such as neuro and behavioral sciences. And the emphasis is on the strength of the research design. So they focus on how strong the research question and proposed methodologies are. And what happens is the design study is submitted for peer review. And if it is accepted, the journal provisionally agrees to publish the final results, irrespective of the outcome. So, this really goes to one of the main goals, which is to eliminate publication bias against negative results. But it also supports reproducibility as the entire research process is detailed. And lastly, just a quick note on preprints. We've updated our preprint policy in 2019 as a reflection of the trends within research across disciplines. All of our journals will review articles that can be found on preprint servers. And currently, we're also investigating how we can remove any friction from the preprint publication process through our trial with bioRxiv. And this allows authors to submit their manuscript to a journal directly from the bioRxiv site just by clicking on a link. So in this brief talk, I've highlighted a few areas in which we're providing opportunities and choices for authors to implement open research practices into their research communication workflow. Our goal is to provide choices for authors that align with how they're engaging with open research practices and what they're able to do. Institutions and funders also play a significant role in promoting the adoption of open research principles and practices into the researcher workflow. Giving credit and increasing the visibility and value placed on all parts of the research process, not only the final published report, will send a signal to and incentivize researchers. How researchers are assessed will influence the ways in which they work. And much of this comes down to education and awareness, making sure researchers across disciplines understand what open research is and how they can change the way they work to open up the research process. And we, of course, are here to help with raising awareness if that would be of interest. We run workshops globally on all aspects of the research communication process, including open research. So please get in touch with me if you would be interested in a workshop for your particular community. And if you would like to investigate further, here are some resources I mentioned today. So Center for Open Science, Foster Open Science, and ROAR. And I've also included a link to the Registry of Research Data Repositories, as well as my email address for those of you that might be interested in an open research or publishing workshop at your institution. So with that, I say thank you, and I will pass on to my colleague, Liz. Let's see.
Thanks, Victoria. And hopefully what I describe will be able to dovetail quite nicely with what you've introduced, which is great. Can you see my screens? Can I just check that you're able to see my screen?
Yes, Liz, we can see it.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so thank you for that introduction, and thank you also for having us speak to you today at the webinar. So thank you, Kimberly, and everyone who's organised this today. I wanted to follow up with what Victoria's introduced to show you F1000 and what we're doing with a number of research organisations, and it very much speaks to the issues and the topics that Victoria's already raised. So F1000Research was launched as a company in 2013. We provide an open access publishing platform. That's what we originally started with, which behaves like an online journal. There's a visual of it there. And the aim of it is to facilitate rapid publishing using a unique post-publication transparent peer review model. And the model was designed specifically to focus on enabling the shift to more open and reusable and accessible research. And it very much aligns with what is now known as open science. So the model accelerates access and reach and impact. It has functionality built in that enables reproducibility of research and reduces research waste, which is a real focus for many research funders particularly. But it also offers the ability for early career researchers particularly, and other new emerging subject areas to really engage and share their work and make their work as accessible as possible. So it's a real opportunity also to support research careers and capacity building in areas and among different research career stages. As a company, we were acquired by the Taylor Francis Group last year, and it's been a really interesting year that we've had in terms of building up what we've been doing. And now we're offering end-to-end publishing solutions to a number of big organisations, including funders and research institutions and societies. So some of the organisations that we're working with are shown here. We have partnerships with the Wellcome Trust, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We also work with publishers, so we actually have a partnership with Emerald Publishing, and we're also currently building a platform for the European Commission. Everything that F1000 does is built upon the post-publication peer review model that we offer, which I'm just going to show you a little bit more about now. We describe the publishing model as kind of beyond open access. Open access is a foundation block, and Victoria's explained a lot about the open access model already. But open access for us is just the foundation block. Everything that we do within the publishing model is designed to make the work as usable and reusable as possible. So I will go through this really briefly, but we can follow up and I can share these slides with you as well if anyone wants to follow up in detail. But essentially an article will be submitted to the F1000 platform. We do a series of in-house pre-publication checks. So we check for things like plagiarism, we check for that articles have ethical approval. We have a mandatory open data policy. So we follow the principles that Victoria mentioned to make sure that data are as open as possible, but as closed as necessary. So if data need to have managed access, we absolutely support that. But we have a policy that the whole point of publishing research is to make it as usable as possible. And if research are being described in that article, then we don't want them embedded in supplementary material and supplementary article spaces that are potentially inaccessible to the author and the readers. We want others to be able to access that work and really be able to use it. So it is much more than just being able to read the work, which open access enables. Articles that pass our pre-publication checks, and around 30% of articles are currently rejected because they don't meet our stringent conditions to make that work as usable as possible. But once they pass that, they will be published on the site before they've been peer reviewed, and they'll be issued at that point with a DOI, and they'll be indexed and discoverable in Google Scholar and on the F1000 platform. This typically takes around 14 to 21 days for us to take an article from submission to decide that it's going to be published on the site. Once it's published, that triggers the peer review process. And the peer review process, we call it open peer review. And again, as Victoria mentioned, there are many flavors of open peer review. The model we use is perhaps the most extreme in that it's open. All the comments are open. The identities of the authors, of the reviewers and the authors are all open. So it's completely open in every aspect. But the actual invitations to peer review are invited. So we use the typical way that a publisher would invite someone. We invite someone based upon their expertise. We screen for conflicts of interest. We also do get the authors involved in helping to select the peer reviewers, again screening for conflicts of interest. But in our model, because the reviewer's role is not to decide if the work is published on the site in the first place, the reviewer's role in our model is to get that work into the best shape it can possibly be and to make it as usable and reusable as possible. So it's invited peer review, but it's done openly and transparently. So once the peer review comments come in, they're posted alongside the article with their own unique DOI. So the reviews themselves are actually citable. And then the article is revised as required. The authors submit another version. All versions are connected together. And we have a threshold, which I won't explain today because of time limitations, but we have a threshold that an article that is being reviewed, once it reaches a peer review threshold, it will be classed as past peer review. So when the comments and the reviewers are happy, an article will have passed peer review. And at that point, it will be then submitted for much more broader indexing and be much more discoverable. So for those of you familiar with preprinting, our model effectively combines the benefits of preprinting, which is this early stage of research. So we're allowing rapid publication of work and we're not holding up the research publication while the peer review process is going on. But we're also combining that into one process with the quality assurance that peer review gives. So the whole process is basically preprinting and peer review all in one place. All our articles are given, and we use industry standard article-based metrics across all our articles. So here's an example. We offer a full suite of research metrics related to every single article. So this is an example. So we have views and downloads and attention-based metrics, which, because of our publishing model, are actually quite useful in the very early stages when an article is published, because you can see work that is being really talked about in social media, or might be of interest to certain communities. But once it's peer reviewed, we also you can have work is obviously cited in the traditional way. So every article published with us is a research article. It is citable. It has its own DOI, and it then can be cited in the same way as any traditional article. And there's an example of the suite of metrics that we provide on an article, and you can see that this one is been cited in Scopus and in PubMed. And there are other indexes that we work with. It's just this one hasn't been cited in those places. The other thing that we've been doing, which is again goes back to the core of what we're trying to do into making all research outputs and all aspects of the research process as usable and as accessible as possible. We offer a wide range of article types. So I just want to focus quickly on a couple of these, because these are areas that really appeal to different types of researchers and also early career academics in particular. So we offer research article types based upon methodologies and study protocols. Again, as Victoria mentioned, we are also starting to publish registered reports. People can publish articles based upon a deep dive into their methodologies. Again, often methodologies are described in a research article, either in the supplementary material or traditionally not in enough detail for that work to be reproduced and work to be checked and followed by others. So what we wanted to do is provide the ability for the methodology to be really described in detail and peer reviewed. And this can be done. We're talking to some funding agencies particularly about whether we actually help with the review of the methods in an early phase of the research, rather than it being part of a research article published 3 to 4 years after a researcher's grant has started, which might be too late to pick up some of the things that could be included or perhaps excluded in the methodology. Methodologies, of course, can be quantitative or qualitative. There's some examples on the right there. These are great ways to support training for others wanting to use methodologies. As Victoria mentioned, this is all about fair principles as well, making sure that work is reproducible. And these are a really great way for methodologists. An increasing number of different types of methodologists are now involved in research. So statisticians, for example, visual arts people, anyone working in any data and method article development often don't get the recognition for the important role that they've played. And this also provides a route for them to be able to describe what they've done in detail and get credit and help to build the career path and a profile for the work that they've done. Similarly, Software and data articles are becoming increasingly popular, and we do see other publishers following us and publishing deep kind of focuses on aspects of the research process that traditionally wasn't described in a research article. And again, these are articles that actually really help reproducibility. So it allows people to describe a data set that might have been supplementary or included in supplementary materials traditionally, or might not have been talked about or available in enough detail for someone to be able to use them. Same with software. Lots of research software is created in research projects, and we want to make sure that, again, as Victoria mentioned, that the code and any descriptions around the provenance of software is able to be described and for others to use. And again, this is a great way for data and software experts to gain visibility for the contributions they've made and gain a citable publication. So those are some of the research outputs that are peer-reviewed in a traditional way, like in a traditional journal. F1000 is also providing the ability for other types of research outputs that perhaps don't need peer review, but are nonetheless the outputs of research to be published in a much more discoverable and citable way. So we also provide the ability to publish other kinds of research outputs, such as policy reports, training materials, guidelines, fact sheets, and also things like posters, slides, and documents using professional publishing services. So we don't peer review them. We do some editorial checks on them. We give them an open access license. We index them on Google Scholar. The content gets a unique DOI, and we also apply altmetric to them. So often you find this kind of materials are created for either events or conferences, or they're sitting on websites, department websites or funder websites, and they're not very discoverable, and you don't have any sense about how used they're being. So we are applying the kinds of services we do to articles. So we have metrics on the usage of these kinds of materials. So this one has views and downloads related to it. And again, just to finish, this is the kind of way that we are facilitating a more holistic view of research outputs and being responsible around how we value different types of research outputs. And we're a signatory to the DORA Declaration, which I'm sure many of you are involved in or are very aware of, in that what we want to do is value all the different types of research outputs for their intrinsic value, and make sure that research is valued for the things that it delivers. So that's the publishing solution. So everything that F1000 does, we follow those models. The ability to publish research articles based on the post-publication peer review model and the publication of non-peer reviewed materials that are nonetheless based upon research is something that F1000 does in its own platform, F1000Research, but we also are providing solutions for organizations to do this for themselves in partnership with us. And we do this through two routes. We offer a service we call the Gateway Solution, where organizations can have a hub on the F1000 platform that's specifically branded for them. And there's two examples there, one with the Tropical Disease Research Network that's part of the World Health Organization. And there's another example of University College London's Institute of Child Health. We have a gateway on the F1000 platform for them. And you can also have your own version of F1000Research. So we basically are white labeling the F1000Research platform with all its functionality for other organizations. And this example, as you can see on the screen, is the Welcome Open Research Platform. So it follows the principles of F1000Research, but it looks nothing like F1000Research. It's got the full branding of the client on there. So just briefly, this might be something that, again, if you're interested in any of this, happy to follow up at any point. So in a gateway, we can provide a dedicated space on the platform for an organization. Within that gateway, there's lots of different functionalities we can offer, but one thing you can do is create different thematic spaces or subject area spaces. So you could have departments in there or different subject focuses, so humanities, social sciences, or any strategic areas related to an organization. We will collect all content published on this platform related to you, and you'll have a specific portal for you to submit information to as well, and it's your space. The second thing, go back to the platforms. These are basically, you can see the F1000 example in the corner. We've basically provided the same functionality and the same technology stack to different organisations. So we have partnerships with Wellcome, the Health Research Board Ireland, the Gates Foundation, the African Academy of Sciences, and the example there is Emerald Publishing. And these are much more highly branded solutions. These behave like their own publishing outlet. So for those of you who are familiar with ISSNs, the Wellcome platform and all the other platforms, the Emerald platform, are their own unique publishing outlet, so that they basically behave like their own journal. They have a unique ISSN. And again, within the publishing platforms, you can create themed spaces. They're much more customizable because they're much more branded, and they are the solution for the organization that we're working with. They are also being used to complement other publishing portfolios where organizations have publishing portfolios. So Emerald are using it as an extension of the offerings that they offer in terms of the publishing solutions. Yes, and it's basically very, in terms of customizable, offers the same F1000 model underneath the skin. So just a bit more on the Wellcome platform. One of the things that we're always keen to do is make sure that these platforms are popular and being used by the clients and the researchers that they serve. And Wellcome is a really great example. It's the first one that we started 4 years ago. It was launched at the end of 2016, and it was 4 years old last October. And it's currently the #1 destination for all Wellcome funded authors. Wellcome don't mandate authors to publish here. They recommend it, or they say that here's an option for you for all the reasons that we described, but they don't mandate it in any way. But researchers have chosen to publish here, and in little over 4 years, we have more than 800 papers on this site, peer-reviewed articles on the Wellcome Open site. And interestingly, we're seeing a real high demand for the novel article types that I showed you. So over 10%, and actually over 10% of article types on the Wellcome platform are the study protocols. Another 8% are method articles. So you can see nearly 20% of what's on this site are things that are difficult to publish elsewhere, but nonetheless really, really important research outputs. We've also been working pretty hard with Wellcome and a number of our clients that they want to make sure that new publishing options are favourable and uptake and support early career researchers. So within the Wellcome platform, we've actually created an advisory board and some spaces specifically to showcase early career researchers' contributions. So we have early career researchers talking about why they choose open science, why it helps them. We've got awards for things like the best article and the best reviewer as well. And we're really seeing a real uptake in open science methodologies, particularly among early career researchers who just want to kind of do something new and want to do things much more rapidly. And then just before I summarise, the other thing that we're building at the moment is a platform for the European Commission, as I mentioned. This is going to be covering all research areas, again built on the foundations of the F1000 publishing model. And this will be launched in about 3 weeks' time. So we're busily finishing this off. We've seen a massive increase. So at the moment, the platform is open for submissions, and we've had more than double the expected number of submissions, even though it's not open. So it is definitely something of interest to researchers wanting to do something and try publishing in a new way. So that's really exciting for us. So finally, just to summarise before I hand it back to Kimberly, so F1000 solutions, these are some of the things that we think would be of benefit to institutions. Obviously, if working with an open science facing solution helps puts institutions at the fore of open science practices and best practice. The approaches that we offer, we think, maximise visibility and discoverability of a wide range of research outputs, and we know that that's a real important issue for both funding agencies and research institutions. Provides a space for institutions to showcase their research, obviously evaluation and impact of research institutions, not only to make sure the research is used, but actually to show that what great work different institutions are supporting is really key. It gives value and visibility to all kinds of outputs, so it's very DORA compliant, so making sure that research is assessed for its intrinsic value. And also it's a really easy way for researchers to be compliant with open access policies of either their funders or their institutional employers. And most of these relate, but for researchers, one of the key areas that we always hear about, researchers do quite like novel rapid routes for research, and in the model that we offer, everything that is published is citable. It's really attractive to early career researchers through the diversity of work and options that we present. Again, it's a really nice way for different departments to showcase their work and the opportunities for researchers to work across departments and find out what other departments might be doing. It does extend the choice of publishing offerings to researchers. And again, it allows researchers to be easily open access compliant without having to worry about it, and much more, we hope, because of the future facing model and the whole kind of open science drive and mantra of everything that we do. So I'll stop there. I hope that was useful, and please do ask any questions. I will make these slides available. I know there's a recording too, so if anyone wants to ask any questions or follow up, please just get in touch.
Wow, thank you so much for that background and introduction. I definitely learned a lot, and I think our members are learning a lot too. I asked, midway through Victoria's presentation, do you have a champion for open science on your campus, and where do they sit? Is it in OIT? Is it in libraries? Is it in the Office of Research? And I only had a couple people respond, one saying, yes, there's a group of faculty members, one saying, no, we don't have it here. And I think that's indicative of this being a new conversation for research development, but it being a really important conversation. And so some of the questions that have come in, one is about, Laura Fuentes asked, can you talk about how open data works in the context of human subjects research? Are there implications for the informed consent process? And I'm going to, share a tiny bit of my perspective, and then I'll ask maybe Victoria to jump in here. And I would say, sort of inverting the question, Laura, it's unethical to not be working in open science when we're talking about human subjects research, and that's, I think, a part of the reason why NIH does require, more access to data and does require you to go and publish. And just recently, earlier this month, Johns Hopkins did a really exhaustive review of international, specifically China mainland, studies that were of redundant clinical trials for coronary artery disease. And these redundant trials looking at statins, which are a well-established cholesterol-lowering drug. Tons of people take statins. They absolutely save lives. The Hopkins review of these 2,000 redundant studies that have gone on over the past decade or so revealed that there were over 600 unnecessary deaths because from I think a violation of some ethical principles, participants in these studies were being assigned to treatments that were either non-existent conditions or a non-existent condition in terms of they weren't getting the treatment that should be baseline at this point. And so, there is a real ethical implication when we talk about human subjects and open science. Victoria, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Liz picked up on this as well when she was talking about data with F1000 as well. It's how the data is presented, of course, and that there does need to, at times, need to be precautions taken. And I mean, this has come up, a lot of the worry has come up in behavioral science and this sort of thing, where there is a concern around open data, but that is why it's as open as possible and as closed as necessary, and that you do have protocols in place, or you do have practices in place to be able to deal with that. I don't know if you want to add on, Liz, from your perspective.
Yeah, no, I think that covers it. When we see that a lot, but I think we are getting increasing uptake from clinicians, particularly and people working in the spaces that Kimberly hinted at, wanting to be able to publish, studies, negative studies as well, and incremental studies, and studies that perhaps haven't broken Nobel Prize or anything like that, but actually are really, really useful, and people want to be publishing that. I know research funders are quite keen, like Kimberly said, to make sure that work is published. So yeah, but I think we have to be a responsible publisher. Our job is to make sure that research is as usable and reusable as possible, but we don't want to damage the research process either. So we're trying to be responsible about that, and the managed access is the way that we're hoping to do that. But we hope by having mandatory open data policy, the benefits of that far outweigh the kind of risks of some of the, you know, of not sharing. Absolutely outweigh that.
Yeah, thank you. And so as we, you know, come up on our last 5 minutes together today, I think Brad Fenwick asks the question, like the whole point of us being here. And he asks, how will open science increase research competitiveness of the faculty at my university? Which, you know, is the frame of mind that any NORDP member is really thinking about. And two pieces of data that Victoria, you shared were, number one, when you know, open access data is linked to an article, citations increase 25%. And when it's just an open access article, citations increase 30%, 6 times downloads. And that's where I start to see the path toward increasing research competitiveness for our faculty. If they're getting more citations, if they're getting more reads, they're going to be increasing their name recognition. And that would be increasing their competitiveness then when they go to apply for agencies. So that's the logic that I see, they think is really crucial for our members to understand. You know, interested to know if you all can add to that.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money there. I think that is a key thing. And also just the kind of culture around open science and open research, of collaboration, of networking and this sort of thing. I think that it just builds such a rich research environment, you know, that it is going to raise the status or the focus of the work at the institution. Because there's just a dynamism in it that you don't see when everything's kind of closed off and people are in their little office writing their papers that they put behind a paywall, or, you know, they're not sharing.
I think on a practical level as well, I think, you know, basically it increases the discoverability of your research, right, coming from the institution. You know, it's good research practice. It's great for capacity building and developing the next generation of scientists, you know, through the collaborations as well. So there's real practical kind of investing in the future benefits for doing this as well. But I think, yeah, practically on the first level, it makes your work really discoverable and usable, and it has your stamp all over it. Just because you're open doesn't mean it wasn't attributed to you. So I think it's like a really, really great way forward.
Yeah, and Eric just asked about smaller institutions, and I think that the open access is this, you know, the advantages, the benefits are especially true for smaller institutions who may not have the big brand name institution behind them to be recognized in their field and get increased recognition. One probably quick question from Panos is about, does F1000 have an impact factor? Do you measure that? Do you calculate that?
We don't calculate that. We've purposely never calculated that because we didn't really want to get into that game because of the kind of principles around responsible metrics and things. So we have very comprehensive article-based metrics. We are indexed in Scopus, and you can cite the work. We are cited in Scopus doesn't calculate the journal impact factor. So we're not indexed in Web of Science because we didn't want a journal impact factor. Having said that, we are looking to be indexed in Web of Science for the discoverability angle, because go back to what I say, the whole point of what we do is about discoverability. Traditionally, being indexed in Web of Science has come with the fact you get allocated a journal impact factor. We do have a journal impact factor that you can calculate because there's a formula. I'm sure Panos knows this. Yeah, but we just would never, even if once we're indexed in Web of Science, which we're looking at now, we wouldn't advertise that on our website at all. We would focus very much on the article-based metrics always. So we don't advertise that at all. We wouldn't advertise it at all.
Thank you. And so let's try to squeeze in one more question. Carol Lovin has her hand raised. Janelle, are we able to open her mic? Maybe not.
Hi, Kim. No, it's okay. I'm sorry. I'm opening it up as we speak. Bear with me one second.
Great.
Carol, you're self-muted, so if you right-click on your name, you should be able to open it up. Unfortunately, it says it's self-muted. Or you can just type your question into the question box or the chat box, and we can take it there too. And I just sent you a request to open it up too for your microphone. So there's many options for you to choose from. There we go. Carol, we should be able to hear you.
Hi, can you hear me then?
We can, yes. Hi.
Hi. First of all, I just want to thank you for giving this presentation. I am not familiar with the publishing side. I do a lot of pre-awards, and I am actually listening in today for a couple of associate deans for research that could not attend today. And I just want to thank you for giving the basic overview of open access so that I can understand it better, but also the slides will be very helpful to share with my peers, but also with our associate deans and at the dean's level. So I just wanted to thank you for that, and I think this is going to be very valuable. And I just appreciate the time that NORDP took to put this together. So thank you for that.
Great.
Carol, you just provided us with a perfect segue, so thank you. And I'll hand it over to Dr. Eck, but I just wanted to mention, guys, this is panel number 1 of 2. We are hoping to do another panel with NORDP towards the end of March. We are talking to Dr. Eck and a few other team members, so more details to come. We are also working with Laura, who's on the NORDP team, in regards to getting the presentations up, getting the recording up on the NORDP website. That will be shared as well. But no, this is really, really great, guys. So I wanted to thank all of you before handing it back to Dr. Eck for this great presentation.
Yes, exactly. That was the perfect segue, Carol. So we thank you so much, everyone from Taylor and Francis F1000Research for joining us here today, providing that overview. We very much look forward to the next talk next month, and really appreciate everybody who joined us today. We had over 95 members joining us, which was awesome. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. We'll see you. Bye.